Hello everybody, it's your boy TapMana, and today we have another ASMR deck build. And we are calling this deck Iciehawt. It's a Spell-slinger deck with other aspects to it that are found in Iciehawt. Hopefully you like it, so let's get right into it. Alright, so I like to choose a few commanders whenever we build some of these decks, so you have options of how you want your combos to run, because there are different ways you can go about this. The first one I pulled out that I definitely wanted to be the star of this deck is Giora, Weatherlight Captain. I specifically like this commander or this legendary creature for the fact that if you cast a historic spell, you draw a card. This card will combo off of a couple other cards here for sure. This deck was meant to be very Iciehawt-like, very Iciehawt, as you should call it. So yeah, let's get right into it. I unfortunately actually made a first cut of this video that I had to edit out, in which I had the package opening. It was a sound issue, so instead of just bothering you with all that, I went ahead and just opened it. Sleeves are fresh though, but yes, we'll go ahead and find a placement for Giora here. Let's move our beautiful purple Dragon Shield sleeves. We have purple matte Dragon Shield sleeves to help us today. Sleeve these cards and to set up our deck. Now, this deck has 64 spells, 10 of which are multicolored. 21 of these cards are going to be red cards specifically. 22 of them are going to be blue. The red and blue devotion are equally divided by 43 though. That was actually by accident, so that was pretty funny. This has 24 creatures and 11 artifacts. The rest are going to be instances and sorceries. So in this deck, blue does a lot of what blue does in this deck. What we're going to see is a little future gazing through cards like Brainstorm. Then we have and Preordain. Then we have Tasha's Hideous Laughter and Maddening Canopy, Cacophony, Maddening Cacophony for mill effects. And then on the red side, we just have burn and duplicate effects, which blue will replicate as well. So they're going to really bounce off of each other really well, I think. So I think I'll start off with the other commanders or potential commanders. Now, Giora is going to work well with Niv Mizzet. Niv Mizzet of Iciehawt. I've been waiting to say that. Niv Mizzet of Iciehawt Draco Geniuses. When Niv Mizzet Draco Genius deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. And then you can tap a red and a blue, and the Draco Genius will deal 1 damage to target player or creature, causing you to draw that card. So that'll be our second commander there. I know it's a pretty powerful card in a commander. I know someone mentioned on the last ASMR deck build that I did, which I'll be revealing the winner of at the end of this video. They mentioned one of the cards on there was banned, so I'm going to be replacing that card with a different or better card. Another card here that is less threatening because of its high casting cost is Milek Iciehawt Paragon. This is another potential commander here. You play with the top card of your library revealed, and you can cast instances and sorceries from the top card of your library. I like this specifically so you can see what's going on. It makes it less threatening, unless if you have one of these powerful spells on top, but you can actually cast from your library, and then when you do, you copy it. This deck has a lot of copy, so you're going to be using some of these copy abilities to double, if not triple damage, or instance and sorcery effects that are going to be found in your draws. That's our second commander there, or potential commander. I try to keep it to now just 2 or 3, but the last one I had 5, and I found a couple other legendaries that I thought was cool and went well with the theme, not just for the color, but the actual abilities. Zara, Renegade Recruiter. This one is actually the most threatening in my opinion, because whenever Zara Renegade Recruiter attacks, you can look at the defending player's hand and you can put a creature card onto the battlefield under your control, tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Return it back to its owner's hand. And that's just mean. You know you're not going to get their commander But unless if for some reason the commander's in their hand, but just in general, that's just a mean card in my opinion. Really cool though, if you can get something to make it unblockable, that's really cool. The other card here that I had in mind was, and this is specifically because there's a lot of instances and sorceries going on here, is Uvilda, Dean of Perfection. You can exile a target instance or sorcery card in your hand and put 3 hone counters on it. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if this card is exiled, you can remove a hone counter, and once it's removed, that spell will cost 4 less to cast. Now there are some heavy casting cost instances in sorceries that sorceries mainly that you'll see here. So, but the other side of this will be Nasari, Dean of Expression. Nasari, Dean of Expression. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of each opponent's library. Until the end of the turn, you may cast spells from among those exiled cards, and you may spend mana as though they were any mana color to cast those spells. And whenever you cast a spell from exile, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it. So I like this card, this side of it, simply because it seems like a slow roll to get powerful, not as threatening. And there's a lot of text to it, a lot of deciphering, but the ability itself isn't overpowered. And the only multicolored creature here, which I just had to throw in here because it was just too cool. The art is just so creepy, but we have a Noggle Wizard. When it comes into play, if you control 2 or more islands, you may tap two target permanents, and not just any. I mean, that's just any permanents right there. And when it comes into play, if you control 2 or more mountains, you may have Noggle Hedge Mage deal 2 damage to target player. There are going to be ways where you can double or triple the damage here in this deck, so this would actually be really useful to hold on to until you have those effects out. Then you drop and just do some pretty decent damage. All right, so those were the commanders and multicolored creatures. We'll go ahead and start getting to, actually I should have set these up differently. Let me get our sleeves, do that, and then we can put our cards there. Actually, I like the idea of putting the cards right in front of us at the center so you can just see what's going. But moving along here, let's go ahead and continue on with just the multicolored spells, and then we'll move on to each according color. The artifacts here you're going to see are really going to back everything up. I might actually, you know what, let's go ahead and start with artifacts, because artifacts are going to help make sense of everything you're going to see here. So the first thing we have here is a nice beautiful etched foil Talisman of Creativity. You can tap 1 for a colorless, or you can just tap it to get a red or a blue, and it'll deal 1 damage to you. Very, very small price for that mana ramp. And plus it's a beautiful card, so I had one there and I wanted to throw it in. Just a little bit of value. Almost all the artifacts here are going to be mana ramp. This one you have no maximum hand size, which that ability will be very useful for something else that you'll see later in this deck. A little sync up there that you'll notice. Plus the colorless mana that you would definitely need in this deck. Mana ramp, mana ramp, mana ramp. That's all I'm going to say is a nice beautiful fire diamond here. The essence of flame to stroke the spirit. When it enters the battlefield, it enters the battlefield tapped, but you can tap it for that red mana. And then you can float off into a nice sky. The sky diamond. Look at that beautiful giant diamond that person found at the edge of the river there, the nice edge of the waterfall. The essence of wind is to lift up the weary. Isn't that the truth? When you've worked all day on a hot day, that also comes into play tapped and provides a blue mana instead of a red mana because it's a sky diamond. And the famous and well-known Arcane Signet, an excellent card in Commander, as its ability is to let you add 1 of any color to, of your commander's color identity. Red or blue for this one in this case. Beautiful, beautiful cards. No reprint on the Arcane Signet yet. I'm alright with that. Then we have a mana geode. We're keeping the casting cost of these mana rocks as low as possible. So if you noticed, 2s and 3s are common right now. When this enters the battlefield, you get a scry one, and then you can tap it for 1 of any color. In this scry, you're going to really appreciate any ability or any chance to scry here. So when you have the chance to copy your sorceries and instant spells that you'll find here, you may want to take advantage of the scry abilities that you find in there. We have a Seer's Lantern so that you can scry. Just as mentioned, we need to be able to see in the dark. Light to bring hope in dark times. Now, a Seer's Lantern allows you to tap 1 for 1 colorless. It's a 3 casting cost artifact. And you can tap it also for 2, and then you can tap it and scry 1. And if you scry 1 and you find what you like, and you have this out, this nice, beautiful Commander Sphere, you can go ahead and tap it for 1 of any color, which I would recommend doing, then sacrifice it to draw that card. That way, there's no mana burn, so it doesn't hurt. Again, this is another casting cost for 3 item. Nice artifact. The highest casting cost artifact in this deck, Sisay's Ring. You can tap it. It's cost 4. You can tap it for 2 colorless mana, which you will find may and will definitely be useful for some of these ramp spells or some of these fireball spells that you'll encounter. Now, again, it costs 4, but you can tap it for 2 colorless, and with this ring, you have no friends in the world. With this ring, you have no, and I'm saying it all wrong, but I'm going to try again. With this ring, you have friends in the worlds you've never heard of. Sisay, Captain of Weatherlight. We've been speeding along this, but that's because there's a lot to cover with the instances and sorceries here. But this is a theme in the deck now. It's a Twinning Staff, 3 casting cost artifact. If you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time. You may choose new targets for that additional copy. Now, that's the main important part of the spell. You can tap 7 and copy target instant or sorcery spell that you control and choose new targets for the copy, but we're not too focused on that. We just want the first part. The first part's what's important here. So we can get it out just to have that first piece of text out. That'd be great. Second to last artifact is actually an artifact creature. I like to throw this in as many decks as possible if there's more than 1 color. It's just a great card. It's the Ornithopter of Paradise. It's a 0/2 artifact creature Thopter that you drop for 2, and it's flying, and you can tap it to add 1 of any color. If we can get a little defense, a little airborne defense out there, that's great, plus a little mana ramp. Though, even our darkest days, we must never cease creating. Each new invention brings value to the world, be it beauty, utility, or both. Rashmi, Aether Seer. All right. So yeah, those are our artifacts. We have 1 more artifact that I can point out. Yep, this is the only artifact that we have left. Wizard's Spellbook. I thought this was neat. It's from a recent set, Adventures of the Forgotten Realms. I might do an opening of a few packs there next week for that, actually. Why not? But with this one, you can actually tap and exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, roll a d20, and then you can copy the card. You may copy that card, then cast a copy. Or you can copy that card and may cast a copy and pay 1 rather than paying its mana cost. And if you hit that 20 crit, copy each card exiled with Wizard's Spellbook. You may cast any number of copies without paying their mana cost. So let's get that 20 crit. That would just be freaking beautiful, right? Oh my goodness. I didn't even cover the land yet. We're going to cover the land last, but there's plenty of utility land, a lot more dual lands, not the originals, of course, but a lot more dual land types in this one. So we're going to go on and move into our multicolored spells. We don't have too many for the multicolored ones. We have some really powerful ones here, such as Culmination of Studies. With this card, you exile the top X cards of your library. For each land card exiled this way, create a treasure token. For each blue card exiled this way, draw a card. For each red card exiled this way, Culmination of Studies deals 1 damage to each opponent. Now, this card is definitely a desperate use card. I wouldn't recommend using this card unless if you have maybe like 1 or 2 cards in this hand and this is included and you have nothing but mana. Go ahead and do it, because it'll be completely fine if you do. There's cards, I believe, in here that allow you to pull cards from exile, so we'll see about that. But that's our first multicolored sorcery there. Moving forward, we have a collected conjuring. Exile the top 6 cards of your library. You may cast up to 2 sorcery cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from among them without paying their mana costs, and put the exiled cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. So you're not actually losing any cards here. You're taking a risk. You're trying to cast stuff. Considering you can scry, you have scry abilities in this deck. This actually might be a nice way to deceive your opponents, just to let them think that you're trying to go for a brainstorm or an unsummon. Or not unsummon, but a preordain or something along those lines. Jessica's will. There we go. That's one. And then we have a dual-sided card that's actually also a creature. Looks like I actually have you a little pre-release stamp there, or I forget what kind of stamp that is. But there you go. I didn't even realize that. I was looking at the Sonata side, but we'll start off with the Torrent Sculptor. Looks like this actually makes it 25 creatures, or 24 and a half. But the Torrent Sculptor is a blue merfolk wizard. When it enters the battlefield, you can exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. You can put a +1/+1 counters equal to half that card's mana value rounded up. That's pretty neat. I mean, that is something if you just need to get some battle power outside or out into the battlefield. But then we have the Flamethrower Sonata, which is a sorcery that allows you to discard, then draw a card. Now, when you discard an instant or sorcery card this way, this will deal damage to that card's mana value to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So this is what I would like. This is what I would recommend if you wanted to take someone's commander out. And there's that. Bam. So those of you who don't know, for these dual-sided cards, you definitely want to pay attention to the bottom left side, as that'll tell you the casting cost and type of the card on the other side. And moving along here, we have a very powerful instant, a high casting cost instant, which actually, this instant specifically made me want to put all that mana ramp in this deck, not just for the purpose of having extra mana, but we're going to need it if we're going to have spells like this. Now, with this spell, you can deal 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets, tap 2 target permanents, and then you create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token, and then you draw 2 cards. And if you wanted, if this is in your hand, you can actually pay 2 red and 2 blue, or 2 blue, discard this, and you can create a treasure token. So in my opinion, this card is just extremely powerful. So even if you, let's say you're at the opposite end of being able to cast this for its 8 total casting cost, you pay 2, you got yourself a little ramp right there. So that's definitely something I agree with myself should be part of this deck, especially a powerful red and blue card like that. And then moving on, now we have red and blue. So since they're broken down pretty evenly here, I'm going to just go left to right, read it like a book here. We'll start with the creatures on the red side. So I'll pull them out right here, make my little stack to make it easier to grab so I don't peel these cards off the surface. I like the presentation, but I want to keep them preserved. What we have here is a time, is that a time shifted? Not a foil, but is that the old border? But it's a Monastery Swiftspear. I think it's important to have 1-drops on commander no matter what. And what this thing does is it's a 1/2 haste and prowess for 1 red. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature will get a +1/+1 until the end of the turn. The calligraphy of combat is written with strokes of sudden blood. Couldn't agree more, I think. I don't know. That was pretty intense. The next card here goes perfectly in this deck. It's the Young Pyromancer. It's a 2/1 human shaman, also from Time Spiral. I think it's one of the time shifted cards. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can create you create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. So, emulation of the sincerest form of flattery. Emulation is the sincerest form of flattery. I don't know about burning something, but that's pretty cool. I mean, you're getting those tokens, which is an extra distraction, I think. Now, Magmatic Channeler. This card goes well because, along with the instants and sorceries that are going to be floating all around, as long as there are 4 or more in the graveyard, this thing will get a +3/+1. As you see, it's just a 2-drop, and you can actually use its ability to discard a card and exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one, and then you can play that card. So, working off the top of your library, using the Scry ability, getting this thing to its 4/4 status is not going to be hard at all. Then we have an Extended Art Layla, the Blade Reforged. Normally I would put this in a Boros deck, but I just appreciated its ability and low casting cost. It's a 2/2 haste. The casting cost is 1 red, 2 colorless. Whenever this attacks, exile the top card of your library, you may play that card this turn. Whenever you exile one or more cards from your library or graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Leyline. As you noticed, there's a lot of exiling going on. There's even some cases where you'll exile cards and they'll go right back to your hand or to your library or what's to your graveyard. But because it's being exiled, regardless, this will trigger. This had to go in here, in my opinion. All right, moving on here. We have an Effreet Flame Painter. Pretty cool looking card, actually. Let's go ahead and get a close-up of that art right there. You can see that Effreet Shaman just dancing in their gloriness and their glory. It's a 1/4 double strike, 4 drop total. It's 1 red, 3 colorless. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If it would be put into the graveyard from there, exile it instead. Can you see the combos happening back and forth here? And now you're going to start seeing the reasons why here in a bit. We need all that mana ramp, because Emberwild Captain will help us draw cards when it enters the battlefield. You'll become the Monarch. And whenever an opponent attacks you while you are the Monarch, Emberwild Captain will deal damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hands. So you can imagine that you're slowly wrapping up. You need a little defense. You need a little incentive to just not go your direction. Cards like this are discreet enough to sway your opponents to just look at each other for the moment and deal with you by the time it's too late. Then we have a card here that will go well with a couple other cards that you see that will actually enhance its ability. It's a 3/3 haste for 4, 2 colorless, 2 red. Whenever a creature you control attacks, Hellrider deals 1 damage to defending player. And that's a creature. Imagine when you have a few creatures. This is all coming together. Oh, here we go as we speak. We have our Fire Servant. Though this is when I started playing Magic back in 2011. This card will forever remain in my heart. If a red instant or sorcery spell you control would deal damage, it deals double that damage instead. So that's just the beginning of the double and triple effects here. Now, I make these decks with the intention of improvement. I'll start trying to put suggestions of cards that I may not have in hand, or cards that I suggest just might have been out of my price range for these decks, such as, sorry, I had a burp. Fiery Emancipation. I believe the text states somewhere along the lines of whenever a source you control deals damage to another player, it deals triple that damage instead. So there are effects in here where that would be greatly appreciated. Now, at the beginning of what we have next is Ryona, Fire Dancer. It's a legendary human wizard, all red. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create X tokens that are copies of another target creature you don't control, where X is 1 plus the number of instances of sorceries you've cast this turn. They gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end steps. You can see there's a lot going on in here, but it's pretty powerful. So you're creating tokens that are copies of another creature you control, and imagine that creature has procs. It's just madness. This works really well. It's a bit more powerful, higher casting costs. And then, speaking of higher casting costs, we have a Terror of the Peaks that I throw in here from M21. 5/4 Flying Dragon. This is meant for intimidation, again, and defense. Spells your opponents that cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life. And whenever another target creature enters the battlefield under your control, this will deal damage to equal that creature's power to any target. Pretty ruthless card. I want it in here as more battle power, just something to throw into the air. When you put it on the battlefield, you have pretty mean flyer and with the ability of doing more damage from your hand. So the next one is another dragon here. It's the Hellkite Courser. I picked this one simply because if you picked a high casting cost commander such as Niv Mizzet, you chose Niv Mizzet instead of Giora, you have this card in here where you can just leave Niv Mizzet in the command zone, and then when this enters the battlefield, you can put a commander you own from the command zone onto the battlefield. It gains haste, and then you can return it to the command zone, or you do return it to the command zone at the beginning of the next end step. So you're just getting value out of this, or maybe you just want to get your commander out a little bit easier, or just have an effect happening there, especially if you have your own red-blue commander that you choose. That'd be cool. All right, our last all-red creature is an Angrath's Marauders. This is a high casting cost creature. You'll hear why. It's 2 red and 5 colorless. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. Mean. That's why I added all that ramp in there to get cards like this out safely, without having to risk all that mana to be tapped. It seems like we're moving along pretty fast here. We're about halfway through. Let's get to the let's go through the red sorceries here. So just because we have that note of sources allowing more damage than usual. Here we go. Mizium Mortars. Good example where you can deal 4 damage to target creature you don't control, or you can overload it and do it to each creature. So you're doubling it to 8. That's just destroying creatures out there, almost an Eldrazi killer effect. Then we have cards that mana ramp and just so much good value. We have Jeska's Will. Can we just appreciate the fact that we have Jeska's Will in here? You can see Jeska with her heart open to all of us right there. Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Jeska. Gather your strength, prepare yourself. Jeska to Radha. I bet that was Radha, Heart of Keld. Anyways, let's go ahead and get Jeska's Will sleeved here. I saw the Jeska Planeswalkers. I think I only pulled it once, and it was really cool in my opinion. I think I saved it. I probably put it in my binder. And then we have Jaya's Emulating Inferno. It's a 2 red and an X. You may cast legendary sorceries if you control a legendary creature or a planeswalker. We do have plenty of legendaries in here, so not a problem. And this will deal X damage to up to 3 targets. So even if you didn't have a complete mana coverage to destroy one thing, the abilities in here will allow you to double or triple it. In some cases, double it twice. Then we have Crackle with Power. This is why, another reason why I felt so much mana ramp was needed. If you're not sure with Crackle, if you're just listening to this and not really watching, Crackle with Power, it's 2 red and 3 X, but it'll deal 5 times X damage of up to X targets. Ruthlessness, right? Oh my goodness, I'm putting that up. That's another fireball here. And then we have another pre-release stamped. I think this is pre-release. I'm not sure if it's pre-release or what to call it. I forgot the stamp name, but this will deal, it's Meteor Swarm. It's 3 colorless. I mean, not 3 colors, 3 red, 3 mountains, and then total Meteor Swarm is 3 mountains and X. And it'll deal 8 damage, divided as you choose amongst X creatures and or planeswalkers. So no matter what, you're getting that 8 in. The X is really just for how many targets do you want, which I thought was a cool change up to that. So, and our last red sorcery and non-permanent spell, we have Surge to Victory. Exile target instant, or Surge to Victory is 4 colorless and 2 red. You can exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, and creatures you control gain X plus O until the end of the turn, where X is that mana card's value. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player this turn, copy the exiled card, and you may cast that copy without playing its mana cost. Again, big power, high casting cost, but the value is there. So we're going to move this slightly here and adjust because we have a few more cards for the red side. The final 3 cards for red are permanents and their enchantments. So again, these enchantments will definitely be useful in this deck and kind of run the point of this deck. So we have dual casting. This is an enchantment aura that you select on your creature. So I select a creature that might not be as threatening as it looks. So you just add it on there and keep it as a utility creature. Even a token, if you generate a token, it would be great. But you put this on that creature, and that creature has tap red, and you can tap that creature to copy target instant or sorcery you control, and then you can choose 2 targets. Very neat. So just imagine the brainstorms or preordains that you need to do. Or if you just want to do some real mean damage, you're going to find out on the blue side it's not all counters in there. The next enchantment we have, now this card is really meant to bounce off of some of the source damages here, but it's also another form to get you draw ability. Court of Ire. It's 2 red and 3 colorless, and when it enters battlefield, you become the monarch. And at the beginning of your upkeep, it'll deal 2 damage to any target. If you're the monarch, it'll instead deal 7 damage to that player or permanent instead. So you can see why this would be useful in here. It's just extra damage that's being dished out. Now, I don't recommend playing that early. I recommend that doing something after you have a little defense up so that you can create some distractions. And the last enchantment that we have here is Double Vision. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery card or spell each turn, copy that spell and immediately choose new copy. So we're copying instances and sorceries, we're exiling them, we're getting them back, we're putting them into our graveyard, we're exiling them from graveyard, we're pumping our creatures up, everything, nothing's being wasted here, nothing's being overlooked. A good example of that is Swarm Intelligence, a higher casting cost, and another reason why we needed all that ramp in there is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery card with this, you may copy that spell and choose new targets. Now this is the same ability as Double Vision essentially, except this is whenever, not just the first time. So it costs 1 blue and 6 colorless. You can see in the picture here, this person's just giving you all the smoke right there. He said, you wanted the smoke, I'm going to give you all the smoke. Bam. And that was our first blue card. So that was a blue enchantment. There wasn't any other blue enchantments here, so we'll start off with the creatures and then go over the blue spells. We'll start low casting cost to high and keep it organized as we have been. So the first card I thought in here, because I thought we needed more air defense and low casting cost with the utility, is our 1/1 Fairy Seer. It's 1 blue, it's a 1/1 flying, and when it enters the battlefield, we can scry 2. Talk about value. I'm loving it. Our next card here is a 1-drop Delver of Secrets. It's a human wizard. This one's pretty cool. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you may look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If it's an instant or sorcery card, transform Delver of Secrets. And this will transform into a 3/2 flying. So essentially for a 1-drop, with the scry abilities that we have going on here, especially that you can retrieve early in the game, that won't be too hard to get an early game 3/4 flying out. So congratulations to whoever's going to win the game with that card. It's always the one you don't suspect. Our next card creature here is a Homunculus. It's an unblinking observer. 2-drop, 1 blue, 1 colorless. It's a 2/1 creature. You could tap it for add 1 blue and spend this mana only to pay for a disturb cost or to cast an instant or sorcery spell. So essentially we have a quasi mana dork there. This is a cool card. I really wanted to highlight this. I really want someone to win this way. So please, if you happen to win this and in the future you play this, if you win it this way, let me know. And what I mean is I'm going to try to say it, but Triskaidekaphile. I can't pronounce it, but it's Triskaidekaphile. It's a 1-drop, or I mean, sorry, a 2-drop. It's 1 blue, 1 colorless. It's a 1/3 human wizard blue, and you have no maximum hand size. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. With this one, you can tap 3 and 1 blue, and you can draw a card. Now, you can imagine this with Niv Mizzet or some of the other small abilities out here that let you draw. It wouldn't be too hard to achieve this, and your opponents may not be aware enough with the other distractions happening with all those instances and sorceries to try to catch you on that. So, Sphinx of Sporelight, Sphinx of Foresight. With this one, it's a 4/4, and it's a 4/4 for 2 blue and 2 colorless. You may reveal this card from your opening hand if you do scry 3 at the beginning of your first upkeep. It's a flying creature, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you can scry 1. I didn't see any reason why this shouldn't be in here, considering it wasn't the highest casting cost, and we do need to be able to build our hand ahead of time with the high casting cost stuff that we need. And the last blue creature, and the last creature that I see in general here, is our Mulldrifter. 1 blue, 4 colorless, 2/2, commander special. It's a 2/2 flying, and when it enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. You may play, there has an evoke cost, so you can cast a spell for its evoke cost. If you do, it's sacrificed when it enters the battlefield. So it's another way to draw 2 cards. We are now nearing the end of the video. Almost, kind of, sort of. We have the utility lands to go over, and the rest of our instances and sorceries for blue. Let's get everything in frame for you. All right, we are back. Okay. So we'll start off with sorceries here. Now, we're very well aware we have many abilities in here that are going to let us copy spells Exile them and use them in different ways. So Preordain, it's just a staple that has to go in there. It's a 1-drop that lets you scry 2 and draw a card. This is a card I wanted to see also go in action. So imagine copying this and then other ones. Maddening Cacophony. It's one colorless, 1 blue, and it has a kicker for 3 colorless, 1 blue. Each opponent mills 8 cards. If this spell was kicked, each opponent mills half their library rounded up. Imagine copying that. Just in general, like that doesn't mean. Or this, we have a foil, Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until that player exiled cards with total mana value of 20 or higher, or 20 or more. The raging Behir reared back, opened its terrible maw, and collapsed in a fit of horrifying giggles. Excellent. Oh man, I just, the distractions here, like Fractured Sanity. Each opponent mills 14 cards for 3 blue, and it has cycling, and whenever you cycle it, each opponent mills 4 cards. So you're milling something. Opponents are milling something when they're playing against you. They're going to mill, they're going to feel a burn. They don't know exactly how you're going to win now. And what they don't realize is you have many ways of winning with this deck. We have a foil Barrel's Expertise for a little quasi board wipe. Not so much as a board wipe. It's really just another way to cast more stuff. Return up to 3 target artifacts and or creatures to their owner's hands. You may cast a card of converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So this costs 5 total. It's 3 colorless and 2 blue. So it's a 2-in-1 in my opinion. It's a 2-in-1 with the ability of slowing down your opponent. But if you are desperate and you just need a restart, and you have no maximum hand size, and other opponents may do upheaval, return all permanents to their owner's hands. This includes lands. This is so ridiculously brutal, and there's no need to copy this. This allows you to grab all the stuff that you've put out, such as enchantments on creatures that let you copy spells, and then maybe place it somewhere else. Or you may not have much out at all, and you need your opponents to back off. There we go. All right, that was it for our sorcery spells for blue. Now we're going to go ahead and go on instances. I thought this one was really cool. It's a 1-drop, and it's called Suspend. It's literally as it sounds. You exile a target creature and put 2 time counters, and if it doesn't have Suspend, it gains Suspend. So you're just bouncing stuff around with this thing. And if you copied it, I could see how I can keep certain things off the board or force people to put their commanders into the command zone. And then we have a classic Unsummon as our next instant. It's almost necessary in any blue deck, in my opinion. You can return target creature to its owner's hand for 1 blue. And then our second to last 1 blue drop, Brainstorm. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. Just got to build our hand. You just got to control it, right? Brainstorm. And then our last 1-drop blue. It's nice. I like it. It's called Fading Hope. Return target creatures to its owner's hand. If its mana value was 3 or less, scry 1. Had to put that in here. You couldn't say no to that. And you got to imagine, like, we're going to be copying a lot of this stuff. So we needed to protect ourselves early in game. So we threw in some counter spells, such as Essence Scatter, where you can counter target creature spells, such as when someone gets their big scary commander out that will stop you at your tracks. Narset's Reversal, where you can copy target instant or sorcery spell, then return it to its owner's hand, and you may choose new targets for the copy. Oh man, this is great right here, Narset's Reversal. Then we have Counterspell. Look at that, we're countering it. Simple as that. You just need to say no to it, and you got that 2 blue untapped. They know you got that thing on you. And then our last blue and instant is counter target spell. It's called Dissipate. 1 colorless, 2 blue. You counter target spell. If that spell was countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So now we're just going to go into our lands. You guys can adjust this as you'd like after one of you wins this. And again, stay for a few more minutes and I'll announce the winner of our last ASMR deck build. For our black and white humans deck. For our special utility lands here, you're going to see it's going to go pretty well for this deck. We have the Biblioplex. You can tap it to add a colorless, or you can tap 2 and tap it and look at the top card of your library. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't put the card into your hand, you may put it into your graveyard. Activate only if you have exactly 0 or 7 cards in hand. Remember to read that last part. You don't want to cheat. And then we have, oops, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be sleeping as I go. It's part of the show. All right, so the next land card that we have here is in a Hall of Oracles. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can tap 1 and tap it for any color, or you can tap it just to add a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery and only if you cast an instant or sorcery this turn. That's why I put that in there, because there's going to be a lot of casting of instances of sorceries, and then casting of copies of instances and sorceries. We have a command tower, the best card in Commander right here. Add 1 color of any color in your commander's identity. We have a Thriving Bluff, which when it enters the battlefield, it's tapped. But when it enters the battlefield, you choose another color other than red, which in this case we'll choose blue. And then you can tap it for 1 of the red or the blue. And then the Thriving Isle, which is essentially the same thing except it's vice versa. It's automatically for blue, but you would add a counter for red. This is one of my favorite blue lands in general, called Halimar Depths. Useful in this deck for the scry ability. When it enters the battlefield, it comes into play tapped, but you can look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. It taps for blue. And then we have Temple of the False God. Tap for 2 colorless. Activate this only if you control 5 or more lands. I'm not a huge fan of this card, except in this case, I think it'll work really well considering the high casting stuff. That could be just game enders in here. And it might just really come in handy, especially getting that mana ramp up. Desolate Lighthouse. You can tap for colorless, or you can tap 1 colorless and a red and a blue, and you can draw a card and then discard a card. So if you're desperate and you have just a little bit of mana, you can make that happen. We have a Kur Keep. It's a legendary land. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can tap 1 colorless and 1 red, and tap it and create a 0/1 red kobold creature named Kobolds of Kur Keep. The reason why I put this in here specifically is, again, we need distractions, we need blockers, we need stuff to keep people busy with. So it doesn't hurt where if you're waiting for your turn, you got nothing to do. At the end of someone's turn, create a kobold. Excellent. We have a Evolving Wilds, which had to be in here because we definitely might need it if you draw a hand full of red and you need a blue. The multicolored lands we have Frostboil Snarl from the Strixhaven set, I believe. When it enters the battlefield, you may reveal an island or mountain card from your hand. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped, but it taps for a red or a blue, or a blue for a red, however you want to look at it. Silver Bluff Ridge, which is actually an artifact land, an indestructible artifact land for red or blue, but it just enters the battlefield tapped. Valuable card. Surprised it's not uncommon for being indestructible. And then we have Prismari Campus, where it enters the battlefield tapped, but it taps for a red or blue, and then you can tap 4 and tap it and scry 1. Again, this is for those tight moments where you just need a little extra help. And then we have Swiftwater Cliffs. When it enters battlefield, it enters battlefield tapped. But you gain a life, and then it taps for red or blue. And then is it Guildgate? It's just a Guildgate. It just enters battlefield tap, but it does give you the red or the blue option. Seeming as a devotion is 43 on each side. It's so even. I've taken in consideration of the colors that are enhanced in here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 red mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blue. Now that's considering I have all the duels, but I also have that Halimar Depths in here. So really the difference is only almost by 1. It's actually just by 1, and I don't think that can be helped, considering it has been helped through all the artifacts we added in there. But yeah, no, that was the deck. Again, I was calling it Iciehawt Spell-slinger. But whoever owns it, you can name it whatever you want, discard it, do whatever you want with it. I just want you to really enjoy it. And yeah, that was the deck. What I'm going to be doing here is announcing a new winner for this deck on November 12th of next month. If not the 12th, it should be the 13th, but it should be the 12th. In my opinion, I think I'll have it ready by then. I'm going to try to keep up these ASMR deck build videos and try to see if you guys still want more. If you guys enjoy what you watched today or listened to, I ask that you please drop a like and subscribe. And if you wanted a chance to win this deck, all you have to do is like, subscribe, and then leave a comment. And then the winner will be able to reach me on the back end of my channel or through DM, and I send out the package. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and announce the winner now. The winner of our last ASMR deck build, which was humans, black and white humans with lifelink. That's the theme of the deck. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this right, but Phlogiston ASMR. Congratulations, you're the winner of the last ASMR deck build video that I've posted. I'm going to try to email or message you if I see that you're available, but if not, go ahead and send me a message through my Linktree or any of my avenues, and I'll go ahead and get this sent out to you right away. If you choose not to be the winner on this, I'll be happy to donate it to another winner. And yeah, thank you everyone again for watching. If you want to see more, please show some love, leave a like, subscribe, and share to a friend if you think someone would enjoy these videos. Other than that, I'm going to sleeve these up, tuck them nice away somewhere safe, and then get it packaged for our winner. So again, congratulations, Phlogiston ASMR, and everyone keep an eye out for next week. I'm going to be doing some pack openings, and then the week following is when you'll see the next ASMR deck build video. That's the schedule I have set up so far. But thanks again for watching. I hope everyone has a great day and week. I'm going to end my turn there, and I pass. All right, promise I had my turn. Bye.